In the Wild West world of podcasting, there is one podcast that is authentic and genuine and continues to stand tall in its originality. Based on a passion for his guests, their work, and his love of podcasting, Derek Thomas and Monday Morning Critic Podcast get amazing, diverse, unique guests found nowhere else. The variety and quality are endless. There is something for everyone. Derek Thomas is the hero you deserve. He's a silent guardian, a watchful protector. Welcome to Monday Morning Critic Podcast. Here is Derek Thomas.
Movies are dreams that you never forget. Sammy?
Lights change how everything looks. It's hard to find our house.
Ours is the dark house with no lights.
In this family, it's the scientists versus the artists. Sammy's on my team, takes after me.
What kind of movie are we gonna make?
Dismiss what he does that's playful or imaginative. You could afford to be a little encouraging.
She should have been a concert piano player. What she got in her heart is what you got.
You can't just love something, you also have to take care of it. It's more important than your hobby.
Can you stop calling it a hobby?
Mom got a monkey.
Why'd you get a monkey?
Because I needed a laugh.
You always have to be the center of attention.
Stop shouting at her!
That has been nothing but disrespect from you. I'm your mother!
Family, art. It'll tear you in two.
You stop making movies, it'll break your mother's heart.
I don't know what to do anymore.
You do what your heart says you have to.
What was your favorite part?
Judd, how are you?
Boy, you're recording, huh?
Yeah, don't tell anybody, Judd.
No. I'm just thinking we better like each other. Okay.
So
take the warning.
Judd, I was so happy to speak to you today because you've done so much, in your career. Your filmography is so entrenched with such wonderful work. What do you think your life would have been like had you gone down the engineering in the Westinghouse road with a degree in physics? Have you ever thought about that?
I always wondered about that because what I took from it really was the learning was great. The use of the learning was great. You kind of, I didn't know or even think that I would become an actor at that time because that was the most important thing was to learn as much as I was capable of doing. I was fascinated with mathematics. I was fascinated with physics. I was fascinated with everything that I learned. And so I went as far as I could. But there was a Dybbuk somewhere in me that just kept on, knocking at my heart and saying, you will not be happy.
And it's hard.
If you don't do something with people, you will not be happy. So,
and it's hard to make that decision, right, Judd? Because you're going from something that in a career like acting, which is very unstable, to a job that is very stable. You're clearly very bright degree in physics, so that takes a lot of chutzpah to make that decision.
Well, it's just when you become the aviator and you can fly the damn plane and that you'll be able to do some great things with this airplane that you jump out of it in a parachute and wonder where you're going to land.
Yeah, and you know, I did want to wish you a belated happy Veterans Day and thank you for your service. My father was in the Army, so I can absolutely respect and be grateful to anybody that does serve. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I laughed my way through. It was fine.
So I
Luckily,
did want
I
to.
wasn't around. Luckily, I was either too young for one war and too old for the other.
And that's a good spot to be in. Absolutely.
But somehow, we're always at war.
I did want to touch upon a few of your works before we get to this wonderful Resistance 1942 movie that I saw. Great movie. You know, what do you think? You know, I was reading something on IMDb today, which is funny to me because I wonder who put some of these entries in, because anybody can enter things, and it says that many of your characters are cranky and ill-tempered. I find that your characters are filled with depth and heart. So it's like weird how people can see your characters. Like, I think your characters, and I can name 10 movies off the top of my head where the character has heart and depth and love to it. So
that's the trouble with social media. There, when it comes to a matter of taste, they just don't have it. I mean, hey, listen, if you ever got described by that many people, there's only one or two is really going to know what the hell they're talking about. The other ones are just blabbing.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they meant it as
sure. Yeah, if you're described by that, you kind of say to yourself, who is it that's describing me?
I mean, you could say that about any actor. You could say that about Al Pacino. Like, I just think it's weird how people see things, and I don't think they meant it as an insult. I think it was a compliment, but I don't think it was very reflective of how the range that you possess.
Not a compliment. It's like somebody trying to find an adjective. You know what I'm saying? It's like not knowing English well enough to describe something. Hey, listen, language is very imperfect. The people who can use more language perfect at least an image which is closer to what the language can describe. There's no language that really can tell you how you feel and how you can express it. You have to just do more and more and more. That's why adjectives are there. That's how it, and remember, the expression from inside to outside can only come from language. I mean, and it's so imperfect. I'll tell you what I found out when I went to school, and I was going to study very technical stuff called engineering. It's called math and physics. Okay, that's what I studied. Math was the beginning. Math was the thing that got me interested into what is possible and how you get there. It's almost like, if I was someone gave me a telescope now and I could look into the universe, I'd be fascinated by how to get there. I'd be fascinated by anything I didn't know. Math is a perfect language. You cannot describe the number one in any other way.
There is no gray area.
There is no There is no Supreme Court of numbers to tell you what it really means. It's it. But the rest of it is language, and luckily, we get a chance to express artfully through language.
Yeah, and, well said.
These guys wrote a wonderful script, and the rest is your imagination, and what the camera can do.
Yeah, for sure.
But
and
feelings,
and a lot of the people that listen to the podcast were very excited that we were going to be speaking. So I just had a few questions before we hop into Resistance 1942. You were terrific in Independence Day. Why does that movie work so well, Judd?
I think because it had a sense of humor. I think that the technical part took care of itself. Explode as many things as you want and be fascinated with the idea that anything like that could possibly happen. And then get a point of view. And remember, the point of view is, I don't know, I guess it must be the writer and Roland Emmerich, the guy who directed it.
Yeah.
They were always somehow interested in how funny something can possibly be. In the, you know, in the depths of the worst thing that's happening, I saw something funny. You know? And I think that's that way in almost every tragedy and almost every disaster. But he had a great sense of humor.
And when you're on set, Judd, or shooting a scene, are you ever blown away by a colleague? For example, I was rewatching A Beautiful Mind over the weekend. Are you ever blown away by, like, say, like a Russell Crowe, you know, in an iconic movie like that? Has a castmate ever blown you away with their work, or a director with his or her words? Have you ever been blown away like a fan would be blown away while watching it?
Yeah, well, I can only, hope to join them in some way. You know, from the very beginning, fascination came how how I can use myself in their place. You know, wherever they were. I was wondering how I could affect Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well
and the
said.
fascination is, you know, like with Pacino, you know, there's a series of Pacino does called Hunters, and I got an opportunity to play with him recently on that show, and I admired that guy more than pretty much any American actor when I saw it, because I believed him so much, and I don't know, there's something so down to. He was strong. He was really good. And when I got the opportunity to play with him, I thought, there we go.
Yeah.
If I can only express and join on that train that he runs on, I'll be very, very happy. And I was eager, terribly eager, and I was glad that they asked me to do the part. And then coming to the second season, I have to repeat the character, and he calls me and says, "Come over and let's talk about this."
Yeah.
about our scenes that we're going to do. So
yeah,
I went over to his house. We sat in the garden. Brought the writer, and they wanted to know what I thought. Now that to me was like that's a gift. That's a you know, you not only are as good as you are, but you're so willing to show me, you know, that your willingness is to want to make something come out good. You know, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know, usually you think you're going to be taken for granted if you're going to be in the same room with a god. You know, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
Like,
so I have to
like Steven Spielberg. Okay, in the last movie I just did, you think, oh well, you know, you're going to be under a snowstorm. You know, what are you going to do? Well, he immediately becomes your friend. Immediately is thankful that you're there. Wants to know who you are. Isn't that wonderful?
Yes. So you stole my next topic. I was at the theater about a month ago, and this trailer comes on at the movie theater, and I'm watching it. And after 2 minutes and 5 seconds, Judd, I am in full tears. I am weeping. I am emotional. This movie, The Fablemans, has me like, you know, beside myself. And this is just the trailer. So I can't wait till the movie comes out where I can really embarrass myself in front of my wife. So I have to say, I'm watching this trailer. You mentioned Steven Spielberg. So Uncle Boris in real life is a real person to Spielberg. He's a person that actually existed. And for him to turn to you and I'm obviously paraphrasing, and say to you, I trust you with this character, do what you have to do, just blows me away, Judd, that this legendary, iconic director has this much trust and trusts you as an actor and says, do with this what you will.
Yeah, it put me in that place of questioning. You know what I mean? There wasn't anything for me to ask because there wasn't anything forthcoming from Steven to want to tell me. I figured, okay, if that's the character, and he doesn't have to fit into any particular mold as to what part of how effective he was in the family and what he was like in the family. In fact, the answer is not much, because he hardly ever, met him. You know what I mean? And when they did, he really never. This is what I got was because no matter what I said, his hesitance to describe this guy was there. It was like we can hardly understand what the man said. Okay, all right now. So now you got to go and take a look at the script and see what you're going to do. All right. So I thought, it's the effect on Steven as a teenager that I'm playing. Like an oracle comes down, invades his room, and startles him into an idea that will hit him later. So, have you seen the movie?
No, not yet.
No.
I'm watching.
Right.
I didn't want to see a screener. I'm saving this for the big screen. Yep.
Okay. I'm saying that there is nothing that I could tell you that will spoil this for you, because we'll not be able to describe that. I can't describe the scene no matter what I say. Anyway, it doesn't make any difference. Just remember that Tony Kushner, who is one of the foremost playwrights in America, has written this with Steven.
Wow.
So
I will say that Vanity Fair said about your performance, he burst into the Fablemans and nearly runs away with the entire movie. That was Vanity Fair on your performance in this movie.
Yeah.
Last question on this, and then I'll get to this wonderful movie we're here for. So there's multiple reports. Seth Rogen said it, that Steven, obviously, as he should, is very emotional filming this. It's about his life. It's about people in his life. I think there was a quote where you even saw in the corner of your eye, Steven, getting emotional. How good does that make you feel to see? So I'm passionate about cinema, and I'm certainly no Steven Spielberg, but to hear those stories makes me just love this man even more.
Yeah, that happened off camera, because when we were shooting the scene, his excitement was great for the particular time that I was there. Excitement about how it was going, and the effect on the character playing him. So that part that was not the most emotional thing that was happening that I noticed. I can only notice it because when we weren't shooting and we were waiting for something, and Steven was anywhere near me, I was always in some way talking to him about anything. It didn't make any difference what it was. That he was kind of breathing in some way and wanting to tell you that everything in that room, everything in that house, it was a house. And even on the set, it's not the house, but the set was real. Everything in his memory, he put everything into it.
Yeah.
He reproduced his house. He reproduced all the furniture. He reproduced the color of the walls. Every single thing. He was back in that place. And and it's almost like seeing someone seeing something for the first time, even though they've lived it a long time ago.
Yeah.
And he would just turn around and say, the house where I lived is still there.
It's like being in a time machine. It's like being in a time machine, Judd, a bit.
Yeah, I can't speak for him, but I know how it must feel.
Yeah.
I don't know. We all have a neighborhood that
yes.
we go back to. This guy took me for a ride through the Bronx. One of these writers, guy from Vanity Fair, I guess it was.
Yeah.
For a ride to the Bronx for my old neighborhoods that I can remember. To write an article.
Wow.
I'm telling you, yeah. Boy, mine's a different story from Steven's, but it still affected me tremendously because I'm 11 years older than he is.
That's right. He's 75. That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, but and you guys are both at the top of your game, which is just awesome. Let's get into this Resistance 1942. What
Go ahead.
what a wonderful cast. Jason Patric, Carrie Elways. Unfortunately, it was Mira Furlan's last film, and she's terrific. What a wonderful actor she was, Judd.
What happened to her?
She passed away. I think it was West Nile virus at 65. Yep, passed away. She was great.
Was it just after we did the movie?
Yeah, it was 20. It might have been early. It was 2021 for sure. But she's just terrific in this. Like, she's just this whole cast. But yeah, it was her last film. But like, it's to remember her in this way, to be in such a powerful movie is such a blessing. Let me ask you this. So it's a war genre. My father was in the Army. My dad passed away a few years back. He would have loved it. But there's always a story in our family. It was my great grandmother, where they lived in Poland, and she had a potato cellar, and she hid Jews in this potato cellar at the risk of her whole family being killed, and at the risk of the whole neighborhood being eliminated. So watching this movie, I'm loving the movie, but I'm also reflecting back to this personal, family piece of oral tradition that's been existing in our family forever. So for so many reasons, I love this movie. Talk about your impressions of this movie, because you're so good in this, and it's just a really powerful piece. And I really felt Matt and Lynn did a wonderful job with this movie.
Yeah, I guess if you have to do something like this, you have to find an experience somewhere that informs you about what it felt like to be in such a desperate situation as to be always expecting to be found out, in a situation like that. And then double down on the fact that you're playing in a place that's occupied by the Nazis, and they're right outside your door. God, I mean, put yourself in a situation in a place like that, and like, for instance, I was a kid during the Second World War, right? When the Holocaust, when I started to realize about the Holocaust, couldn't get out of my feel. I went over and over and over and over again about how it would be that I was so lucky not to have been there. You know what I mean? There, but for the grace of God, my God, 6 million. But I mean, I could have been one of those people. And then the fascination is that there's no way you can tell. You can't live through. You can't. As an actor, I would not be able to do that. I'll approximate it perhaps, but what is it like? It's the hardest thing to play, really, because it's the hardest experience to even think of. You every second that you're going to die. Every second that misery is your companion, and doing this movie, I was kind of grateful that these guys came to me and asked me to play this part, because it kind of it helped me get through how it could have been. You know what I'm saying? And why I suffered as a child, knowing that. I mean, I would have wished to have been born any other time, believe me. But that was the thing that was my era. I was a child. I went through the Second World War. I heard about it all. We were all warned that we could lose, and the only thing we knew that we needed to get through life was courage. I mean, as a child, in school, here in America, that's what we had to learn.
And how much, Judd, how much of your, you mentioned growing up during this time, how much of that is, obviously you have your acting ability, and I get it. You could become a chameleon. I get that part of it. But how much does personal experience like this, in a movie like this, get involved in your acting? Living during these times, reading about what people were going through.
Yeah.
How much of that is actively in your mind as you're acting?
You got to know this. It's still in me. I still, I mean, that'll never leave. I'm carrying that forever. There's no applause needed, but I'm saying that will be in me until the day I die. That experience is uneradicable, and you can't remove it from me. Whether the tradition that I didn't even ask for, being Jewish, has had any effect, I wouldn't know. I can't tell you that. Now, I just know that one day I went to Israel to do some kind of a project, some movie project, and as soon as I arrived, somehow an entire country, I never met anybody from there at that time. It was in the 80s, and I was welcome. As if I'm supposed to welcome, as if it's my homeland. I mean, I'm American. I wasn't Israeli. I wasn't any of those things, right? I mean, I wasn't even religious. All I did was get bar mitzvah because I was forced to, because I had to. Right? And that's all I had. But for some reason, they didn't even instill it in me. I don't know. I guess so. I'm really from an old place. I guess my mother was from Russia. She was Yiddish. I mean, these are things that sort of like hang out in your past. You don't even know how they got there.
Yeah. Well said. I have two final questions for you. One of which is, you have a co-director situation here with Matt and Landon, and I heard you on the previous project say Steven kind of gave you the reins to kind of do what you will. Did Matt and Landon have the same approach? Were they like, Judd, this is your character. Do as you see fit.
Yeah, they depended truly on what we came up with and who we are. At least with me, yes. I think that's why they wanted me to be in the movie, and why we met. We actually met. I invited them over to my house. They wanted to come and meet me and talk about it. I wanted to talk about that movie before we did it, also, because I wanted to make sure that those pieces that I read were going to be in it. Now, sometimes things will change. It's like warning them that you better not change certain parts that I like. You're not thinking of taking out those prayers, are you? You know what I mean? That's a major part of the movie.
Yeah, it's a terrific movie. It's available now, I think, pretty much in select theaters and on demand. 11/11, a wonderful movie. My last thing for you, Judd, is I remember my late father and I we bonded watching Taxi in the late 70s. And here you are in 2022, still kicking ass. And I just want to say, I love your work. You're a phenomenal actor. And thank you for taking time to talk to me today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Derek Thomas and Monday Morning Critic Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, you can also connect with Monday Morning Critic on Instagram and Facebook, MDM Critic on Twitter, subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever podcasts are found. All episodes available, www.mmcpodcast.com.